When all is said and done, Rocket League is a game that is all about decisions. Whichever team makes better decisions both on and off the ball is the team that is more than likely going to win that particular game. So in today's video, we'll be discussing what you can do to make the most out of your opportunities on the ball. Now, when we say playing with purpose, what exactly do we mean by that? Well, there are a couple of different schools of thought when it comes to playing the ball. The first school of thought is just hit the ball as hard as possible every single time. You'll mainly find this strategy being utilized towards the lower ranks. As you rank up and improve your control on the ball, it is important to start to recognize all of the opportunities around the field where you have space to utilize that control. Whenever you have an opportunity on the ball, your first two questions should always be, where am I going to hit this ball and how am I going to hit it? By answering these two questions smartly, you can often not only get control of the ball, but also get around at least one challenging opponent. To showcase how important this idea really is, we'll be talking through a couple of examples, one where we absolutely do not have any purpose behind our touch on the ball, and another two where we actually formulate a plan with the ball and execute it to a fairly high level. So we're going to be starting out by taking a look at a very bad example of playing with purpose, and a key thing that you absolutely want to avoid in your own games if you want to give yourself the best chance to be successful. So we're going on kickoff here right at the top of this game. Teammate takes the challenge, ball pops up. You can see initially we're checking where our opponents are. We recognize, okay, let's go for a challenge here, just make sure they don't have any kind of free touch. We pop the ball over to the side, perhaps not the best touch, but also not the end of the world because it is a pretty difficult ball for our opponent to deal with. But now here's where we're going to see the very important part. So this ball comes bouncing off the ceiling, and we very clearly do not have any boost to be able to actually attack this ball quickly. So we're going to make the smart decision here initially to just wait patiently in this area. So wait for the ball to come down or wait for another challenge to come out to move the ball to a different spot so we can possibly be more effective. But at the very least, we're applying pressure in this situation. So we do bait out a pretty rush touch there from Bray, and the ball is going to bounce off the sidewall back into the midfield. Now, this is where it's very important not to get baited in by the thought of just scoring an open net. Because if we look on the defensive half, we can see one opponent already back, pretty much going to be able to get this boost and rotate back very quickly, and we don't exactly know where our other opponent is right now either, so it's pretty likely that this net is going to be pretty well defended. The second thing we need to consider is that, again, we only have 17 boost. So at this exact moment, what we need to be asking ourselves is, what is the best play we can make in the situation we're in to be as effective as humanly possible? And in these situations, it is incredibly important just to make sure we're trying to maintain possession of this ball as much as we can and trying to dictate as much of the play as we're able to. So in this spot right here, we recognize we have space. Yes, we're on low boost, but why don't we just let this ball bounce off the sidewall, catch it on our car, possibly go for some kind of flick or at least force a 50-50 with our opponents back here so that we dictate how the play is going to go and we can maintain more possession of the ball overall. But instead, what we're going to do here, and this is a cardinal sin of Rocket League, we instead decide that the best option is just to lever this ball as hard as possible towards the net. Now, if you look at the defense here, you might notice some problems as, yeah, there's absolutely no way a ball moving at the pace of a snail is going to get past both defenders in this situation. Now, I'm not saying that if we had taken control of the ball, we were going to score a goal here, but the important thing is recognizing that it's not always about putting the ball in the net. The more you can maintain possession of the ball, the more pressure you put onto your opponents to get a clear, and the better chance you have to wear your opponents down to eventually get a goal. Because as we see here, this is absolutely a completely worthless touch, as both opponents are just like, beautiful, thanks, and now they have a free clear back the other way. Now we are the team that has to react to what our opponents are doing, rather than taking the opportunity with that space to dictate how the play was going to continue to develop. So now that we got the very poor example out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples where we actually do successfully play with purpose. So right here, our teammate is going to be taking a challenge. Ball's going to pinch out pretty aggressively, and we're going to recognize there's really no reason for us to absolutely hard dive in for this, As you can see, and this is going to be an important point going forward throughout this play, we do have a 2-goal lead with only 40 seconds left. So at this point in the game, as long as we don't do anything incredibly dumb, we should be able to play this out without a whole lot of issues whatsoever. So we're just going to wait patiently here as this guy goes up into the air. And now it's very important immediately that we recognize the situation we're in. So as we can see, our teammate here is rotating back behind us, so there's no chance that he's going to turn on this ball, especially because we were in comms in this situation, so we can call him off if he tries to. We have one opponent who's flying through the air heading this way, who's going to be landing with momentum and have to work his way out before he can turn around and challenge at all. And we have a third player here who's working across this way, who again does not have the easiest time turning to make a play on the ball. So using that information and keeping an eye on our opponents is going to tell us that we have an opportunity to take a bit of control here. Now again, the key that we're going to want to go with here is we want to try to dictate how the play is going to develop as much as possible. So where exactly do we want to hit this ball, and how do we want to hit it in this situation to give us the best chance to be successful? So if we're looking at where this guy is going, he's heading towards the wall. So the last thing we want to do is try to chip the ball up this wall, because more than likely he's just going to cut off that touch and it's going to put us immediately back under pressure. So instead, we want to tap the ball into a spot that we can quickly follow up that allows us to at least get another 50-50 should a challenge come in immediately. So with that in mind, we want to play away from where this guy's momentum is carrying him and instead pop the ball up right to this area here, or even maybe over to the left a little bit, just to make it even harder for him to work in to get a challenge. So what you'll see right here is us just taking a light touch, not towards the wall, but instead towards our left side, so that it's a little bit further away from our opponent. But now you can see, we see him coming. Now the important thing here is that we don't want to do anything that's going to send us flying out of the play should we get beat, because right now we have full control of the ball. So we are about to dictate how any challenge that's going to come out here is going to go. So what we need to do now is just judge how he's approaching the ball and position our car accordingly to take that challenge successfully past him. So as you can see, we just wait patiently, bait in this challenge, go ahead and put our car nice and solidly behind it, which allows us to win that 50-50 fairly easily, and now we're able to go ahead and follow up on the ball again. Now again, the key here is we are buying as much time as possible. So while we could just decide to boom the ball away or try to go for some kind of like high air dribble here, the important thing is we also don't want to take ourselves out of the play if we can help it. We want to allow ourselves to stay as involved in the play as possible, especially judging by the situation we're currently in this game. So with that knowledge, we're going to go ahead and we are going to possibly start an air dribble, but the second we identify that this opponent is not challenging, we're just going to let this ball come down and we're going to focus on catching it to be able to maintain this offensive pressure, while also just keeping the ball entirely under our control and not giving our opponent an opportunity for a hard 50-50 win that would send the ball anywhere back towards our own half. So again, recognizing the space, identifying when we have time, and utilizing that time to keep the ball as close to us as possible. As you see here, we recognize the space, we go ahead and land with the ball. Now, unfortunately, we don't get the best catch, but that's not the end of the world. Now we can go ahead and just take a nice solid 50. They do win this one, but we are not overly far out of the play. Bray over there is on 0 boost, and we can very easily rotate back into this play to get back to support our teammate without a whole lot of issues. So throughout that play, the entire idea was just trying to buy as much time as possible to kill as much of the clock as we could. By just keeping the ball in our possession and dictating how multiple challenges were going to go, we did a great job of killing a ton of time off the clock and getting us one step closer to finishing this game out. Now, this last example is going to be a fantastic exercise in understanding how exactly the ball interacts with your car. So right here, we're going to be moving up the field very slowly alongside our teammate. Going to be waiting to see how this challenge comes out with him, just sitting in a supportive position to be able to play off of this ensuing challenge. Teammate does flick the ball over the top, but there's really not any kind of opportunity for us to dive in on. So you'll see we're still maintaining a nice patient pace, moving around the field very calmly. Now the ball is going to come over to the side here, and again, this is going to be all about recognizing space. So what we see right now is one player flipping back towards the corner, so there's absolutely no way that he's going to play this ball. and this guy who just challenged the ball is pretty much directly underneath it, so very little chance that he gets another challenge on this ball before we can jump up to it. Now, this is when timing is extremely important, because a lot of players may just try to go as fast as possible here, bang this ball off the corner into the mid. The problem with that, though, is because we have this opponent rotating back, it is very likely that he'll be able to get there to at least provide a block, and we're also not doing anything to keep the ball in our own possession, but rather we're just popping the ball into open space and hoping that it works out. And while that's not a horrible idea, keeping the ball in your own possession will often be the better option, especially because we don't exactly know where our teammate is currently. We don't want to be booming the ball into a spot where he actually can't challenge, because if we say land in this corner perhaps, and the ball lands over here and this guy rotates back to it, and our teammate isn't ready to challenge, now we've just left them in a 1v1 going back the other way, which is not the spot that we want to put them in. So by understanding the position these guys are in, we can determine that we don't need to go for this ball super duper quickly. We just want to make sure that we get a clean touch and we get the touch exactly as we want it. So we go ahead and jump up here, and now it's important that we can immediately recognize that there is a gap forming between our two defenders here. So there's going to be some open space here in this corner if we can take advantage of it. So what that tells us is we don't want to try to just hit this ball as hard as possible. We want to try to keep it in a spot where it will land in this area where we can be able to follow up on it, either for a shot ourselves or a pass across to our teammate. Now, how exactly do we go about touching the ball to get it to land in this area where we can follow up? Well, the answer to that is the underside of our car. For those of you that don't know, if you contact the ball with the underside of your car, you're going to get a much softer touch that will make it far easier to keep the ball close to yourself. So as you'll see here, as we go and challenge this ball, we're going to air roll our car so that our underside touches the ball, and therefore making it a very soft bounce off our car, allowing us to recover quickly and get back to the ball. So as we come down the wall here, we can clearly see that the one opponent is over here, and while our teammate is also over there, we definitely don't want to be going for any kind of pass in that direction, just because it's going to be very easy for that other opponent to cut the ball off. Now we see the challenging player coming forward here, and the important question we need to ask ourselves once again is where exactly do we want to touch this ball next to give ourselves the best opportunity to put the ball in the back of the net. Now if you see his angle of approach, he is moving in this direction, kind of almost parallel to the backboard. And what that tells me is that he's actually not really guarding this area of the net. He is more guarding this front post and towards the backboard. So if we go ahead and hit the ball this way, we should be able to get it around him, as his angle is not really conducive to cutting off that shot. So we're going to recognize that angle of approach and just go ahead and lever the ball right past where he's challenging. And you can see that exact angle playing out pretty poorly for him as he is angled this way. And because we didn't shoot the ball to the near post, but instead targeted back post, we now have the opportunity to get the ball around him. And with this guy being so far out of the play, we just absolutely have a completely free net here. And we just do get enough power to prevent the defense from getting back. So as you can see throughout that play, it was all about just recognizing the space the defense was giving us, locating where we needed to put the ball to best be able to follow up on it, and then executing on that soft touch to allow us to get back to the ball. At that point, it was all about reading where the challenge was coming from and simply putting the ball around that final defender. As you guys can see, Rocket League simply comes down to decisions and control. If you make the right decisions on the ball and focus on keeping it in your possession as much as possible, you will give yourself a fantastic opportunity to come out on top in many, many games. Of course, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you who made it to this point in the video, and I do hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button right down below so you make sure you don't miss any future Rocket League content. Additionally, if you'd like to be a bit more involved in the community we're building here, feel free to join my Discord, which I'll have linked down in the description. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. See you later, guys.